Hello and welcome to this edition of One on One with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili. Thank you for watching. Hello, Mr. Leggett. How are you?
I'm delighted to be back. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's start with some economic development news. You signed into law the legislation passed by County Council regarding increasing the minimum wage in the county. What is the difference considering that you vetoed it earlier this year and now in November you signed it?
Well, there are several changes to the original version of the bill. As you know, there was a 5-4 vote initially. I vetoed it and it was not overridden. This one was passed 9-0, and it passed because there are a number of additions or changes, some of which I had recommended that we delay the full implementation of that all the way through to 2024, that we provide some relief for small businesses, that we look very carefully at youth wages and some of the other conditions that we'd outlined that I thought needed to be in the bill. I think from the beginning there was a very strong urge that we needed to get at some point to $15 an hour. The question for us was how fast, what are the conditions and circumstances that we will look at in order to get to that number. I think the difference between the bill that I signed and the bill that I vetoed is that it has stretched out much longer, and we made several major additions to that bill.
How does it mitigate the impact on small businesses?
Well, they have a longer time in which to start to do that for businesses that are small, really the very small ones. 2023, 2024 before they fully are able to implement that. That gives them a number of years as opposed to the original bill, which was a little bit sooner. Hopefully, by that time, the economy would have changed and the business will be able to solve that. But I heard very loudly from many of the small businesses who wanted some level of relief. This bill provides some additional relief, and given the 9-0 vote, I was inclined to sign it.
And what happened to the study that mentioned that it would have an impact, a negative impact in the county, and several thousand jobs, thousands of jobs?
Well, there were some challenges with the data in terms of the methodology, but I think something that was very clear, we may disagree as to the number, but even if you have taken half of that, and I think some of the information they provided later suggested rather than 44,000 be 26 or 27,000. But we had so many questions about the methodology that I decided that we should not accept the study and not pay for it.
And lastly, regarding to the minimum wage increase, the youth employment, how is that going to be handled with it in the new law?
Well, as you know, one of the things that we've strived to get young people involved in the economy to get them working. And if you had to pay the full amount for a young person working, then that would be a real burden on some of the small businesses. What they would probably end up doing is not hiring young people, because part of hiring young people is to try to give them a job, to get them introduced into the economy. But if you're going to have to pay the full fare that you would pay for someone else, you would probably just go ahead and pay a more seasoned worker at that point. And so what it would provide is for 85% of the minimum wage for young people, as well as some probationary workers at 3 months before they will be able to get the full $15 an hour.
And when we say young, is under what age?
18.
Under 18 years
Right.
of age. Let's talk about your recent trip to East Asia. How did it go?
It went very well. We had a trip to South Korea, Daejeon province, which is a very, very remarkable place in terms of the technology, the school system, economic development that is thriving there. And it's a very beautiful city. We wanted to establish a sister city relationship in South Korea. And what people should understand is that this virtually costs the government money at all. We don't pay for it. People pay individually to go on these trips. And so the county tab on this is, I think we pay for one person, that's about it. And so we get in return for that a very strong economic development component, where we had the economic development people with us who are working feverishly to close several deals and jobs and bring some of the industry from Korea to Montgomery County. We have an education component to that, whereby the school system and our college work and exchange program, whereby we send some teachers from Montgomery College and from our school system there. We also exchange students over a period of time. And also the cultural aspects of that with our sister city arrangement. That is to better connect with the people who are here from South Korea, as well as those in the country of South Korea. And I think it helps the county overall with very little or no cost at all for us.
Some of those meetings were obviously with private industries and also with government officials, highlighting some of it on technology and bio.
Yeah, one of the big sellers for Montgomery County is the fact that we are a biotechnology hub. We have a number of federal agencies that are here, NIH, Food and Drug Administration, we have NIST that's here as well, and a very strong presence of the HHS, Health and Human Services in Montgomery County. And so you combine that with the private sector, with MedImmune, AstraZeneca that's here, and you look at the workforce that we have, all of those things coming together makes Montgomery County a real biotechnology hub, both in terms of federal presence, the private industry as well, and we put all of that together, and that's a very strong selling point for Montgomery County. And many businesses around the globe are interested in coming to our county for those very reasons.
So basically it was to attract businesses to the
Oh
county.
yeah, that's one part of it, but it's also the education component as well as the culture component as well. But we have a very strong emphasis on all three of those components: education, employment, jobs, as well as the culture component.
And what surprised you most about this exchange?
I think that the time, because we're quite busy, it's a very grueling trip. It's a 14-hour flight to and from, and then we had several trips in the country, both traveling on land as well as flights. So we visited 4 major cities, and we did a lot of traveling in between. So we were up very early in the morning till very late at night. In fact, the very first business meeting that we had with Green Cross in South Korea, after a 14.5-hour flight, I had a business meeting with our economic development partners in Craig Rice. It was about an hour and a half after we actually landed the flight.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's next? What's the follow-up? What's next?
Well, we will continue to follow up on all 3 of those areas, and I think that we've solidified a very strong partner for Montgomery County, and I believe that it will continue to enhance our county for many years to come. One of the things that I had always looked at is that we plant the seed and we provide the foundation, and as we turn to the future, you'll see the products and the benefits of that. But we're seeing benefits already, so we are seeing great payoffs for recent trips that we've made, and only for the future it would continue to last.
When we come back, Mr. Leggett, we're going to talk about the FY19 operating budget.
Sure.
We know you've been already holding those meetings. It is that time of the year here in the county. Right. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett.
In Montgomery County, we have a goal to reduce waste and recycle 70% of all waste by 2020. By recycling and reducing waste, we save natural resources and make our community even better. So recycle at home, work, school, everywhere, and keep recycling going. For more information, call the Montgomery County, Maryland Division of Solid Waste Services at 311 or visit montgomerycountymd.gov/recycling.
Keep it going.
Recycle more now.
Hello and welcome back to this edition of 101 with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. I'm Lorna Virgili. Thank you, Mr. Leggett. So let's talk about the FY19 operating budget. It is budget season for you because at the beginning of the year you start holding the forums throughout the county, the community forums. What does the financial picture look like?
Well, we're not certain quite yet at this point in time because there's still some time to go before we have to actually submit it in March. And between that time, we will continue to revise our revenue estimates based on tax return, based on the state of the economy, jobs. We put all those things together and we get a pretty good picture about what the resources may be, what we potentially may get from the state in terms of state aid and support as well as the federal government. We will continue to crunch those numbers and look at it right up to the very end of the budgetary process. What we're doing now is basically beginning to look at agency requests, look at what we've done in the past, evaluate the various requests that have come in for funding, and see how we can manage all of that. And we put all that together and then compare that at a little bit later juncture with the resources that we have, as well as some of the ongoing initiatives that we've started already. So the combination of things, as you indicated, has already started. But we're in the midst right now of trying to put the finishing touches on the capital budget, which we will release on January the 15th. That will come on January 15th, and a couple of months later, 2 months later, we'll present the operating budget. So we were both doing these things simultaneously, finishing the last details of the capital budget, and beginning the preparation for the operating budget.
But by now, do you foresee shortfalls, deficits?
Well, there's a shortfall at this point in time. How we make that up depends on a number of factors. A, what are the revenues we will look at a little bit later on, and what are the expenditures that we will have from our departments. But ultimately, we will balance this budget. It may be one which we would have to provide some cuts, but we aren't sure about the magnitude of that at this point in time. I've already asked our departments to reduce their budgets by about 3% so that they could provide some level of support for us going into the next budget cycle.
Okay. Triple A bond rating from Wall Street. It was received despite all of what you were talking about. And the county has, according to the 3 agencies in Wall Street, has a stable outlook, correct?
Yeah, well, we're very proud of where we stand. Montgomery County is a AAA bond rated county, and that really means the good housekeeper stamp of approval to say that you have managed well your finances, you've done all of the things that Wall Street would expect of a AAA bond rated county. And that comes from Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch, all looking at Montgomery County simultaneously and say this is a very stable, very well organized and managed county. And we pride ourselves on this. We've had this AAA bond rating, and we've maintained it through the government disclosures, the recession, the sequestrations, all of those things that happen. We continue to provide the county with a very stable and very sound financial outlook that I think really pays dividends for us for many years to come.
And part of what you did during this process, the several years that you have handled the tough fiscal situation in the county.
Oh, yeah, it's been tough, but we got there.
Just a little. You have focused also in infrastructure, in capital investment, in structure for the county, new construction. And let's talk about Wheaton. First phase started 5 months ago. It's almost completed ahead of schedule for a change, which is great. You want to talk about that?
Well, we talked about our investments in managing the budget. Despite all of the challenges we've had, we've built over 60 major projects in the county, an astounding number. This is beyond the schools and so forth, fire station, police station, recreation centers, all of those things. And we had a very major effort to improve Wheaton, because we think that Wheaton should be a center focus. It sits right there adjacent to the metro. It's a hub of transportation, a mixture of cultures that are there. And one of the few things that we recognize, we do not have enough jobs there. And so my initiative was to make certain that we provide an impetus for additional jobs. And so we are moving a number of county agencies into Wheaton, such as the Park and Planning Commission. We're moving a number of others there, permitting services as well. All of those come into Wheaton that will provide a foundation for jobs, for which we hope to build from that with private sector jobs as well. And the construction is coming along fairly well. We are convinced that this mixture of private and public entities in Wheaton, coupled with what is already there, the fact that it sits right on top of Metro, great restaurants and great people in and around Wheaton, that this is going to be a hit, and we look forward to the grand opening of the new office facility there, as well as the new plaza, which, as you've indicated, is running right now ahead of schedule.
One of the unique components of this particular construction project is that funding was set aside, business assistance for some 90 or so businesses in the area surrounding the triangle that might be impacted by the construction itself, which is going to last 3 years. How is that program moving forward? The application was released online, I believe, earlier in the month of September. And how is that going with the business?
Well, first of all, we learned some very valuable lessons from our experiences in Silver Spring many years ago, when we did not have the sort of formal assistance program that we now have in place for small businesses that were impacted negatively. Because keep in mind, when you're going through a construction period, many of these businesses still need to know how to operate. And so we provide some level of support by helping to direct the traffic and people to those locations, advertise and make sure that people know that they're open for businesses. And when the business can demonstrate clearly from year to year or month to month that they've suffered some economic loss as a result of the construction, i.e. the fact that there's construction that's ongoing and people cannot get to those businesses as handily as they did in the past, then we provide some level of support for that. But it's a process that you have to go through to demonstrate that you've been adversely affected, and we will evaluate that. But we're not going to make the same mistakes we made in Wheaton, because we think that this is a better approach for which we think we can get good returns on.
Let's talk about youth and the Be the One Suicide and Substance Abuse Prevention campaign that you participated in launching with the public schools and also the county's Department of Health and Human Services.
Well, one of the challenges we have is that we recognize that there are a number of young people who are taking what I consider to be some rather negative approaches in terms of life circumstances, and that is a heavy use of drugs and ultimately for some alcohol and suicide. And so what we've tried to do is to focus on this problem. We first of all must recognize that there is a problem in the county with young people taking these destructive paths in terms of the challenges they face. And so we are saying to people that you can help. You can be the one to help these young people. We're working closely with our school system, with our Health and Human Services program, provide counseling where needed, and support for our young people, because we certainly believe that there's a better path to resolving many of the challenges they face than to turn into alcohol, drugs, and ultimately suicide.
Mr. Leary, we got to take another short break. We'll be right back, and stay tuned. We'll be right back with County Executive Ike Leggett.
Did you know there are more than 10,000 county government phone numbers? But there's only one number you need to remember for non-emergency calls: 311. MC 311 is Montgomery County government's online telephone information system. Need information? Have a problem or complaint? Trying to locate a county government facility? Call 311. The call center is open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The website is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Welcome back to this edition of 101 with Montgomery County Executive Ike Leggett. Mr. Leggett, let's talk about the human trafficking. You signed into law the bill to establish a permanent commission here in the county. How is that going to work now?
Well, we had a task force that worked on a number of legislative initiatives that we moved to provide some level of support for. But the human trafficking problem is not a static problem. It's not something you do once and you're finished with it. It's an ongoing issue. And so as a result of that, given the seriousness of the problem, the fact that this problem continued to manifest itself in some ways throughout the county, that we needed a more permanent committee or task force to deal with this. And so what we've done is to basically commission and make permanent the task force that we had before, so that we can continue to provide support for it and let people know that we are not going to back away from this, simply issuing a report and passing one or two pieces of legislation. We're going to continue to work on this because the problem is that great. We have a real problem with human trafficking in Montgomery County, and we're going to try to work to make sure that we rid this county of that problem. And the best way to do that is to continue the task force and continue the emphasis and the focus on it.
When you say that we have a big problem in the county, how would you describe that?
Well, you know, oftentimes people believe that because this is not some of the other places in inner cities and places where we find prostitution, young people especially who've been trafficked, that Montgomery County escapes this. Well, the other hand of that, Montgomery County is a little bit more affluent than some other places, and therefore we have the resources, at least many of the people in the county have resources, and they are people who pry upon, unfortunately, some young people and traffic it, find ways to get to the people who are the buyers or the purchasers of the services of young people. And so as a result of that, we need to remind people that they are punishment, that this is against the law, and give young people an alternative other than to remain in these abusive relationships.
Let's talk about transportation. You launched the 2-year Vision Zero Action Plan with the goal of reducing by 35% within the next 2 years fatal and severe accidents, collisions with pedestrians. Is that doable?
And
How are we going to
ultimately,
do
by
it?
2030, we'll eliminate them altogether. It's going to be a hard task to get to zero, but you have to set what I consider to be a lofty goal, a goal that you can shoot for, so that we will have that focus, that effort, and that we are committed to, in fact, getting to that point. Simply looking at where we stand today is not sufficient. We have reduced the numbers, but that's not sufficient. We need to eliminate it altogether. And so we're going bold, and we're going after zero by the year 2030, and we hope to have a significant reduction, hopefully within the next 2 or 3 years by 2020.
Let's talk about the terrorist attack in New York City. Post that you mentioned that you were going to regroup with some of the county officials to find ways to protect some of the heavily transited areas. With
What we're
pedestrians
talking
and
about
cyclists.
basically are hiker-biker trails or pedestrian trails. If you look at what happened in New York, the driver who committed this heinous act was able to get on the pedestrian trail and travel literally a mile, thereby garnering a great deal of speed and just literally mowing people down who were on that trail. Now, if you think about it, we have a number of trails in Montgomery County, and so we want to make certain that we provide some level of protection. So if you had, as in New York, a break, a barrier somewhere where the cars could not go that length of that length without coming to a barrier, it may have reduced some of the incidents of contact with that vehicle. So what we want to do is to not allow for a vehicle to travel that length without coming to a barrier and providing some place for people to escape if that in fact occurs. So we're working with our police, our parking planning commission and others to make sure that we provide adequate protection, but also making the trail continue to be accessible to hikers and bikers and pedestrians, but not allowing those vehicles to be able to travel that far. You may be able to get on, but we don't want you to be able to travel an entire mile and therefore come in contact with so many people. You may have to be forced, you should be forced off or have to come to a halt at some point.
Okay. So you're identifying some trails?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Snow Summit. It just happened. Are we ready for the first snowstorm of 2017 or 18?
Yeah. Well, the best deterrent to snow is not to have snow, at least to have less of it than we've had in the past. I think that we're ready. Our equipment is upgraded. Our technology, I think, meets the test for what we need in terms of notifying and ensuring that we can determine where our challenges are. We have a well-trained staff. We have the contractors on standby. We have the salt in our salt domes, agreement with salt and sand in order to get it to the right locations. It's a costly endeavor, but it's one that I think we need in Montgomery County because it affects us in so many ways. It affects, first of all, the health and safety of our community because people need to get to the doctor. They need medical care and attention. It hurts us in terms of our economy. People need to be able to get to work and businesses are closed. It hurts us in terms of our education. Our educational system, our schools and colleges no longer able to operate. And naturally it hurts us in terms of the quality of life. When we have too much snow, it just really depresses people to a degree that we're not able to enjoy the county as much. You know, a little bit of snow here and there is okay, but the amounts of snow that we've had in the past is costly. People have to recognize that we have a large amount of territory to cover in Montgomery County. Each inch of snow in Montgomery County cost this county about $1 million. Let me repeat that. Each inch of snow costs us approximately $1 million. And so when people see snowflakes falling, those white, beautiful flakes falling out of the sky, I literally see dollar signs falling out of the sky. So I don't want to see many dollar signs given our budgetary challenges in Montgomery County.
All right, and tell me about getting depressed with the snow and the cold and the darkness.
Yeah.
I'm a Caribbean girl still. New contractors, technology, new chemicals, anything new this year, new maps?
Yeah, the maps are upgraded. We've gone through and improved the technology on them. And that's what is probably the most significant thing there, so that we should be able to identify locations. People should have more on-time and readiness about how their communities are progressing and getting that information to people as quickly as possible.
Let's talk briefly about the resident survey, the 2017 resident survey. It was mailed out to about 5,000 households in the county, plus the online survey. Had been many years since it was done. What is the purpose of having it this year?
Well, I think we do a very good job of outreach. There are so many contacts that I have for our community. This is one of them. And we have so many other forums in which we talk to people and we're quite accessible. But having the survey, it gives the community an opportunity to sit down, to think about the quality of services that we provide, the programs that are in the county, changes that they would like to see made, and what we're doing. I mean, I think that we're doing an excellent job in Montgomery County. We talked about the AAA bond rating and all the programs and services. We've talked about how efficiently this government operates and how we responded to many challenges of the past. But that's my assessment. The assessment that really counts is assessment of the people in our Montgomery County. So I want people to really look at that survey and respond to it and be informed about, so that we can be better informed about what we're doing and what we need to do better.
And how is that data going to be utilized?
Well, it will help us in making the right decisions, help us in terms of our budgets, where we have to program and prioritize our resources, what's going right, what's going wrong. But you can't make the assessment simply by looking at internally about what you're doing. You literally need to go to the customers. The customers are the residents and businesses in Montgomery County who are affected by the many things that we do as a government.
Let's talk about, circle back to transportation and the ductless bicycles in downtown Silver Spring. Another almost 350 new bikes just landed. They're all over the place. Are people using it, number one? And number two, are we going to see it in the rest of the county?
Well, this is a test run for us. In fact, when I was in China, which is where this idea, the concept came from, you see it in quite a bit of use in China and other places in the Far East. The difference between the dockless bikes and the bikes that we've already had in the past is that the bikes in the past that we still have, they are much more stationary in terms of particular location. You can take them from point A to point B, you park them in a certain location. But if you wanted to go to point C, you may have had a problem because you needed to get the bike back to the point of one of the locations. With the dockless bikes, they are randomly placed throughout the county, and you do not have to go to a stationary point in order to leave or dock that bike. You can leave it at a location that we think is appropriate, locations that we think are much more convenient in terms of the use of that. So you get greater use, hopefully greater participation, because you have flexibility to go to the locations you want to go and not necessarily to the locations that are dictated by the docks that we currently have in Montgomery County. It's a concept that has taken off. I think we're one of the few suburban jurisdictions in the entire country that has adopted this. It's already in place in the District of Columbia and a few other cities out on the West Coast. I think it has a good potential for the future because if we do it right, it hopefully will reduce traffic and get some of the cars off the road.
Let's talk about the environment. I got to see you planting some, obviously some little plants at Strathmore Elementary School, the rain gardens in 4 schools in the county through the Department of Environmental Protection. Is that going to happen in more schools throughout the county?
We anticipate that it will. We think the rain gardens are useful in terms of the quality of the water that we have in Montgomery County. We do not want to see water that comes off of our sidewalks into the gutters and therefore go simply untreated into our stream. The more rain gardens that we have, it provides a natural barrier before those ingredients that are found in the water gets to the stream. So ultimately, it will improve the quality of our streams. Once we improve the quality of our streams, improve the quality of our rivers, and the Chesapeake Bay will be a beneficiary as overall. By having it at Strathmore Elementary School, it allows our young people to get actively engaged in this process so they can see the benefits of what we're doing and learn much more environmental enhancement as they go through life. So we are very excited about this program. You'll see many others. This was the 4th one at a school. We have many others throughout the community, but it's a useful tool to help us to improve the quality of water in our streams in Montgomery County.
Well, thank you, Mr. Leggett. Next month we'll be taping it. It'll be the end of year show, so get ready for that one. We got to recap everything that's happened in the county in 2017. For you watching, any more information, do visit montgomerycountymd.gov. I'm Lorna Virgili, and thank you for watching.
I love taking care of my mom. It wasn't easy at first. She learned how to better communicate her needs.
And you learned how to not ignore yours.
I discovered how to make healthier meals.
And I discovered how much I enjoyed them.
Becoming a caregiver is a learning experience for everyone. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. It's like, hello, That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.